Hello, everyone, and welcome back to AMC Project Popcorn YouTube channel. My name is Ethan, and today we're publishing part 2 of the 8th video in the Daniel Meyer Transmittal Affidavit series. In part 1, we broke down the critical timeline from May 28th to June 3rd, 2021, an explosive and defining week in AMC's meme stock saga. We began by examining Wanda's group's final liquidation of their AMC stake on May 13th, 14th, 17th, and 18th, and overlaid those transactions against AMC's price chart. We also reviewed Wanda's Form SC13DA filing, in which they disclosed owning just 10,000 shares, effectively ending their role as AMC's largest stakeholder. We then moved on to Jason Mudrick's last-minute deal with Aron, acquiring 8.5 million newly issued shares, followed by the 11.5 million share ATM offering executed in under 3 hours on June 3rd, 2021. We highly recommend you watch part 1 before watching part 2. Today in part 2, we're picking up right where we left off, walking through the rest of this period, from June 3rd to June 30th, 2021. We will begin where we left off at paragraph 16 and conclude with paragraph 21. So let's begin. On June 3rd, 2021, Aron gave another interview with Trey, aiming to clarify the source of the 20 million shares just recently sold, including the 8.5 million shares sold to Mudrick Capital and the 11.5 million ATM initiated that morning. Let's listen to the first 14 minutes and 13 seconds of that interview. When does Aron lose his pants?
Everybody, to all the apes out there, welcome back to Trey's Trades, coming out here again to give you guys the second interview for Aron. Aron, it's a pleasure to have you here back again to speak with me and the rest of the apes who are here, joined together for the culture of AMC stock. Hope you're having yourself a good evening.
Hello, Trey. Hello to all your subscribers who are watching this live or who might watch later on. It's really an honor and a privilege for me to be with you and to be with the people who follow you so closely.
I appreciate that immensely. So we're not going to waste too much of your time. We're just going to dig right into these questions. So we're going to throw you some hard balls here right off the bat. I want to talk about the 8.5 million shares that were sold to Mudrick. So there's some speculation coming from the ape community, the retail investors out there, that the sale that took place with Mudrick was, it's a little bit shady, not in terms of what AMC did, but how they sold it and the way they got out of the stock. So they sold it immediately the next week on Monday, and then followed that up with a statement with, being AMC is overvalued. Do you have anything to speak on about that? Because there's just a little bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt in terms of the way that whole transaction took place.
Sure, I've got a lot to say about that. And the way you phrase the question, Trey, is the way some of the people in your community, our community, are talking, but it's not actually accurate. So, and there are some nuances here. So the first thing is that Mudrick Capital has been incredibly helpful to AMC. I want to remind you that back in December, when no one would give AMC a dime, Mudrick Capital took a big risk and lent us $100 million. And that was the catalyst for our continued capital raising between mid-December and late January that brought in $1.2 billion. And I don't think we would have raised the $1.2 billion if Mudrick hadn't given us the first $100 million. And I don't know that AMC would have been able to avoid bankruptcy court had we not raised that $1.2 billion back then. So let's start at the beginning that Mudrick's been a very good actor here, a very good actor. Second, I don't know exactly what they own today, but I know that they have, I believe, I don't know for sure, but I believe they have a couple of $100 million of AMC debt. And they've held this debt for quite some time. Mudrick as a firm has every incentive for AMC to thrive and prosper. That's kind of the second thought. The third thought, I can confirm that we sold Mudrick 8.5 million shares. And I can confirm that we did it at a price of $27.12 a share, and that it brought in I think it was $239 million of cash. What they did with their shares is their business, not our business. We sold shares to them in good faith. They can do what any shareholder can do. They can hold them, they can sell them. That's their decision, not ours. So I can't confirm exactly what they did. I can't confirm the timing of what they did. I do know that some of the estimates out there about how much money they might have made in the buying shares and selling shares are inaccurate reports. And I also know for a fact that they never made any public comment that they thought AMC was overvalued. So what you got those were anonymous sources to people in the media who reported those comments and attributed them to Mudrick, but you'll never find a statement that Mudrick made to that effect on the record. Having said that, look at what they did. They gave us $239 million of cash at what was then a sky-high price for the shares, $27.12 a share. Now, we all know that since that occurred, the share price is higher still. And so I would take that all of that. What Mudrick did, that was all very good for AMC as a company. It was very good for AMC shareholders. Next question.
All right. I like the piece of that you said there wasn't any hard proof stating that they actually made that statement. So I think that's a good thing to get out there, that there wasn't any hard documentation. But the next question that I've got for you is regarding the 11.5 million shares that were sold today. Now, this is just raised some concerns for a lot of the investors. Now, there was the first interview here, we talked about how AMC had, 46-ish thousand shares total remaining after they'd issued those 43 million shares, offering into the market and raised a great sum of cash. So there's a sentiment right now passing along with the retail investor group, the apes, that they feel a little bit betrayed. They feel like the management was hiding something that was behind closed doors, and we just didn't get to see it. Now, there's probably some sort of explanation for this, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. But where did these shares come from for this 11.5 million shares that you sold into the market for Mudrick Capital for those 8.5 million shares? And are there any shares remaining that we should expect for the future so we can make better investment decisions for ourselves?
Sure thing. And Trey, that's one of the reasons I came on with you today, is to make sure that we get the straight scoop out in front of all of the people who are shareholders of our company. Back when we said that we had 43 million shares available for sale, you will also recall that was before the May 4 shareholder meeting that was postponed. One of the items that was up for shareholder vote at the May 4 meeting was to put 20 million AMC shares into what's called the Management Equity Incentive Plan. Those shares would be essentially given to the management of the company. Given, I might add, for free to the management of the company.
Right.
The management team of the company cares so much about the company that we decided that rather than us taking those 20 million shares and those 20 million shares working for the benefit of officers of AMC, that we ought to use those shares a different way. We ought to use those shares to strengthen the company, the company that all of your followers are invested in. And so if you look at a press release that we put out just about an hour ago with the new proxy for the new July 29 shareholder meeting, you will see that there are 0 shares being allocated to the management of the company. Those 20 million shares that were going to go into my pocket and the pockets of other managers and executives of the company, we decided instead that they should be used for the company's benefit, not for our personal benefit. So though, if you look at the proxy that went out a few minutes ago, we are not making any request of the shareholders to put any shares in the Management Equity Incentive Plan. That essentially, those 20 million shares that were going to go to us personally for our own money, that freed those 20 million shares up, and we sold those 20 million shares, 8.5 million earlier over the last week to Mudrick, and 11.5 million today. And between those two transactions, we raised over $800 million of cash, not to line my pocket or anybody who works at AMC, but to put that money in the treasury of AMC to strengthen AMC, let AMC do more good things to grow our company. That's where the 20 million shares came from. We all know what we did with them. We put them into the market. We brought in over $800 million doing so. And that makes AMC a much stronger company, much easier for us to grow going forward. And I think that's in the best interest of our shareholders. There's another point I'd like to make. And it's a very important point because it goes to this whole issue of dilution. I believe amongst some AMC shareholders, there is a fear, you use the phrase FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Right.
There's a fear that just the mere fact of issuing shares is a bad thing for a company. There's another very strongly held view, and it's the view that I hold and that many other AMC shareholders have, including many of your apes. And that is, let's look at the facts. Back in December and January, the
opportunities don't stop when the market day ends. So neither do we. Schwab.
The press was absolutely convinced that AMC was going to fail. We issued 250 million shares and sold them into the market. And we brought in, as you know, from that effort, about $800 million cash. That also triggered us being able to borrow another $400 million of cash. That made AMC so much stronger. That single act of diluting shares saved the company and made the company a stronger company. The share price when that was done was between $3 and $7 a share. Now let's fast forward. We put out some more shares that we announced on May 13th. And we announced with a sale of 43 million shares, which we raised at an average price of which we sold at an average price of $9.98, that we brought in $428 million to AMC. In our view, yes, we were aware we were diluting the share count, but in our view, that $428 million of cash greatly strengthened AMC and made AMC a much stronger company. And I don't need to ask you what happened to our share price between May 13 and now. But what I do know is when we raised $428 million at $9.90, I think it's $9.94 a share actually, at $9.94 a share, we strengthened AMC. Now, sure enough, we announced on Tuesday, we brought in another $239 million. And we announced today that we brought in another $587 million. Look when we did this. We did this when the trading volumes of AMC stock were sky high. In normal weeks, AMC trades about $500 million shares in a week. If we just look at what we did this week, I would say that 8.5 million shares or 11 million shares in a week when we're trading 500 million shares normally. It's just hard to see how that should be alarming. It's such a small amount of shares compared to what's trading.
Right.
But that's against a normal week. The trading has not been normal of late. We've been trading 500 million shares as a company a day last week and this week.
Right.
So 8 million shares or 11 million shares, these are very small numbers in comparison to what's actually trading. And it's our view that that we're strengthening the company and we're not hurting the company. Now, you asked me a question, how many shares do we have left? And we made a public comment to that point this afternoon in a press release. We're done. We're out. There's no more left. Now, when I say there's no more left, I want to be technical. There are 46,000 shares left. 46,000. Remember, this is a company that's issued over 400 million shares over the last year. So if anybody wants to take comfort in the fact that there are no more shares coming, unless the shareholders approve us doing something else, they can take comfort in that. I would actually tell you, if I were a shareholder, I would be more concerned that we don't have shares available to us, because I think shares are a very powerful tool to do good things for a company. Look at the $1.6 billion of cash that we brought into AMC between January and May by using shares. That's very good for AMC. That strengthens AMC. That helps make sure that our long-term future is very bright. And right now, we don't have that. We don't have that tool at our disposal because we've used up all of but 46,000 shares that have been authorized by the shareholders, and they were authorized by the shareholders back in 2012. It took us 9 years to use those shares. There was
During the interview, Aron declared that he hasn't sold a single share of AMC in the 5.5 years since becoming the CEO. Additionally, Aron expressed no concerns about the company's debt. Let's listen.
I am an AMC shareholder. I've run AMC now for 5.5 years. Other than when I gifted some shares to my 2 adult sons, I have not sold one AMC share in 5.5 years. And I have no current intentions to sell AMC shares at the moment. I'm a believer. I believe that we can grow our company, strengthen our company, build our company. And that's what our entire management team is focused on. And again, disconnecting this from the share price of the moment, over the long term, my job is to build a stronger AMC, and that's what I'm committed to doing.
Perfect.
During that same interview, Aron also addressed stockholder concerns about a potential stock split. Let's listen.
See volatility in our stock. And that's something we're all living together. Beyond that, I guess the only other thing to say about the share count issue is somebody out there in the world of Reddit and Twitter was trying to speculate that AMC was either going to split our stock or do a reverse split of our stock. And they were breathlessly reporting this as if they knew this to be true. Well, guess what? I can tell you that I've never given any serious thought to splitting our stock or a reverse split of our stock. That's point number one. Point number two, we have absolutely no plans to split our stock or do a reverse split of our stock. You want to hear point number three? We can't split our stock or do a reverse split of our stock without shareholder approval. So if we wanted to do that, and we don't, but if we wanted to do that, we would have to go out to the shareholders for a vote. So guess who makes that decision? Aron doesn't make that decision. You, the owners of AMC, you make that decision.
On June 9th, 2021, at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time, Aron tweeted out to AMC stockholders giving them notice that as of June 2nd, AMC had 501 million shares sorry, 501 million shares, 780,240 shares, total outstanding shares. AMC's number of stockholders or shareholders in the United States and abroad has increased to about 4.1 million, and you own more than 80% of AMC. While some own more and some own less, the average stock holding for AMC is about 120 shares. This brings us back to why we had the campaign for the AMC share count. If you're still interested, you can still participate. The campaign is ongoing. What we did have was a deadline from March 20th, 2025, with regards to whoever submitted it by that time would be participating in helping us vetting the attorneys and law firms we intend to hire. So the campaign is still ongoing. As you can see, there's 474 participants, and each header or has a title with regards to what date the following numbers are associated. So please participate. Like Aron said, they had X amount of shareholders averaging 100 something shares. With our data, although it's a small sample, we're averaging over approximately 7,000 shares a person. What you could do is take this data point, go to the website, take this data points and put an Excel sheet and then divide each value by 474 and you will get the average. So please consider participating in the AMC share count affidavit. Let's go back. Now, on June 23rd, 2021, Aron continued his quest to convince shareholders to approve the second charter amendment proposal on Twitter. Some of you fear dilution, but may be neglecting that equity raising is a powerful tool to strengthen a company and help shareholders. AMC said 5 times in January, May, and June of 2021 that we diluted shares, but as a result raised $2.5 billion. AMC is so much stronger because we did. By June 30th, 2021, the number of AMC common stock shares issued and outstanding had risen to a little over 513 million shares. This marked an increase of 11.5 million outstanding Class A common stock shares in just 28 days. Anyway, this is the end of part 2. Please, if you have time, try to watch the first 8. It's important that you watch them because they're all in sequence and you can learn a lot of things. The next video will be moving forward as the timeline continues. We believe that video 10 will finally address the most important aspect of Project Popcorn, the day it was memorialized through a PowerPoint presentation on November 3rd, 2021. So keep an eye, subscribe, give a like, follow the channel, and stay abreast of what's going on. Thank you very much, and have a good day.